The 1960s were a wildfire of music, rebellion, and raw talent, a time when rock and roll wasn't just sound, it was a revolution. In the smoky clubs of London, amid the roar of amplifiers and the dreams of a generation, one voice cut through the haze with a power that left audiences spellbound. That voice belonged to Terry Reid, a British singer, songwriter, and guitarist whose soulful roar earned him the nickname Superlungs. He was the kid who shared stages with the Rolling Stones, the talent Jimmy Page wanted for Led Zeppelin, the artist Aretha Franklin ranked alongside the Beatles. Yet, Terry chose a different path, one that led to a life of music on his own terms, even if it meant staying just outside the spotlight. On August 5, 2025, the world lost this unsung hero at the age of 75, and the music world dimmed a little. Today, we're diving deep into the life of Terry Reid. His cause of death, his age, his family, his net worth, his lifestyle, and the biography of a man whose voice still echoes in the hearts of those who heard it. So, grab a seat, and let's journey through the life of a true rock and roll soul. Terence James Reid was born on November 13, 1949, in the quiet village of Bluntisham, Huntingdonshire, England, a small corner of the world far from the electric energy of London's music scene. Growing up in a modest family, Terry was shaped by parents who supported his early love for music, though their names and stories remain private, a reflection of Terry's lifelong desire to keep his personal life out of the headlines. Bluntisham, with its rolling fields and sleepy charm, was an unlikely birthplace for a rock star, but it gave Terry a grounded foundation. He attended St. Ivo School in nearby St. Ives, but academics were never his passion, music was. By 15, he was already performing with a local band, the Red Beats, at the River Club in St. Ives, his voice raw and magnetic even then. Picture a teenager, barely old enough to drive, belting out soul and blues with a depth that belied his age. That was Terry, a prodigy whose talent caught the eye of Peter J., drummer for Peter J. and the Jaywalkers. In 1966, at just 16, Terry joined the band as lead vocalist, opening for the Rolling Stones on their British tour. Imagine standing in the wings, watching Mick Jagger strut, knowing you're next. Terry didn't just hold his own, he stole the show. That tour was a turning point. At the Royal Albert Hall, Graham Nash of the Hollies saw Terry perform and was floored. Nash urged the Jaywalkers to sign with Columbia Records, and in 1967, their single, "A Hand Don't Fit the Glove," became a minor hit, a soulful track that hinted at Terry's potential. But the band disbanded soon after, and Terry's star was ready to rise alone. Enter Mickey Most, the legendary producer behind acts like The Animals and Herman's Hermits. Most saw Terry as a solo star and became his manager, producing his 1968 debut album, Bang Bang, You're Terry Reid. Recorded with Peter Solly on organ and Keith Webb on drums, the album was a raw, soulful masterpiece, featuring Without Expression, a song Terry wrote at 14 that later caught the ear of the Hollies and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. His 1968 U.S. tour with Cream amplified his reputation, with his Miami Pop Festival performance earning rave reviews. The 1969 follow-up, Terry Reid, often called Superlungs, cemented his nickname with tracks like Superlungs My Supergirl, showcasing a voice that could soar from gritty blues to tender folk. But a bitter dispute with Mickey Most over creative control stalled his momentum, limiting his ability to release music and casting a shadow over his early career. Then came the moment that defined Terry's legacy, for better or worse. In 1968, Jimmy Page, fresh from the Yardbirds, was forming a new band and wanted Terry as its lead singer. Terry, bound by a contract to open for the Rolling Stones in the US, asked for a few weeks to fulfill his commitment. "I said to Jim, I'll just do this tour and be back in a minute," Terry recalled in a 2016 Washington Post interview. Page couldn't wait, and Terry, torn between loyalty to Keith Richards and his own path, recommended a young singer named Robert Plant and drummer John Bonham. That band became Led Zeppelin, and the rest is history. A year later, Ritchie Blackmore offered Terry the frontman role for Deep Purple, but he declined again, unwilling to join another supergroup. Aretha Franklin's 1968 praise that England's greatest talents were the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Terry Reid underscored his stature. Yet, his choices meant he never reached the commercial heights of his peers. "I'd rather be known as the man who put together Led Zeppelin," he told Uncut in 2023, a reflection of his peace with his decisions. Terry's career was a roller coaster of brilliance and frustration. His 1973 album River, with its loose, jazzy folk rock and contributions from David Lindley, was a critical gem but a commercial flop. Seed of Memory in 1976, produced by Graham Nash, blended pedal steel and soulful melodies, earning praise but few sales. Rogue Waves in 1979, produced by Chris Kimsey, brought an electric energy, yet it too failed to chart. By 1981, Terry shifted to session work, lending his voice and guitar to albums by Don Henley, Jackson Browne, and Bonnie Raitt. In 1991, he returned with The Driver, produced by Trevor Horn, featuring a cover of Gimme Some Lovin' for the Days of Thunder soundtrack. His music found its way into films like Up in the Air and The Devil's Rejects, and he collaborated with newer acts like Shine and DJ Shadow, recording tracks in Paris and San Francisco. Terry's live performances remained electric, from the Isle of Wight Festival in 1969 to Glastonbury in 1970 to intimate gigs at McCabe's in Santa Monica in 2024. He played with friends like Joe Walsh and Nicky Hopkins in The Flu in 1993, and his 2009 EP with Shine showed his voice was as powerful as ever. On August 5, 2025, Terry Reid passed away in London at the age of 75, succumbing to cancer after a courageous battle. In July, he had postponed a European tour due to complications from his treatment, and a crowdfunding campaign launched by family and friends aimed to cover his medical costs, a testament to the financial struggles that marked his later years. Joe Bonamassa led tributes, calling him one of the greatest to ever do it and a beautiful person in soul. Posts on X echoed the sentiment, with fans mourning the loss of a musician's musician whose influence shaped rock's early days. His death came alongside other losses, Mott the Hoople's Mick Ralphs and guitarist Rick Derringer, making it a somber moment for classic rock. Terry's cancer battle was private, but his resilience shone through in his final performances, where his voice still carried the fire of his youth. The music community grieved a man who toured with the Stones, Cream, and Fleetwood Mac, and whose songs inspired covers by the Hollies, Cheap Trick, and Chris Cornell. Terry's family was his sanctuary, though he guarded their privacy fiercely. He was married, but his wife's name and details remain out of the public eye, a choice that kept his personal life sacred. He had at least one daughter, who joined him for a heartwarming performance of Christmas songs on a cable TV show hosted by Charles Andrews, a moment Andrews described as completely charming in a 2024 Santa Monica Daily Press article. No public records confirm other children or siblings, but Terry's close bonds with friends like David Lindley, whose passing he mourned deeply, and collaborators like Graham Nash spoke to his warmth. His website, maintained by Steve Mansbridge, included tributes to lost friends like Lindley, showing Terry's loyalty to those he loved. He remained tied to Bluntisham, often returning to England between tours, and his life in London in his later years kept him close to the music scene that birthed him. Financially, Terry's story is one of talent outpacing wealth. Despite his influence, his net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $1.5 million, a modest sum compared to Robert Plant's $200 million. His earnings came from 7 studio albums, 4 live albums, session work, and film soundtrack contributions. The dispute with Mickey most cost him dearly, limiting releases during his prime years. A 2016 Washington Post article described him scraping together money for pawnshop payments, a stark contrast to the fortunes of his peers. Live performances, like his 2024 McCabe's show, and collaborations with acts like Alabama 3 kept him afloat, but the crowdfunding for his medical bills highlighted his financial challenges. Terry's wealth was in his art. His voice, his songs, his ability to captivate, whether for 5 people, as Johnny Depp once witnessed, or thousands at Glastonbury. He owned no lavish estates, preferring a simple life split between London and occasional stints in California's Laurel Canyon scene during the 1970s. Terry's lifestyle was that of a true artist, unpretentious, nomadic, and devoted to music. He lived for the stage, whether it was a packed festival or a tiny club. In the 1970s, he was a fixture in California, jamming with David Lindley and soaking up the Laurel Canyon vibe. By the 2000s, he was back in London, performing at venues like the Pigalle Club and collaborating with younger artists. His 2024 McCabe's performance showed a man still at the top of his game, his voice gruff yet soaring, his guitar work as soulful as ever. Terry was a collaborator at heart, working with everyone from Jools Holland to DJ Shadow, and his 2009 Paris sessions with Shine proved he could adapt to new sounds like trip-hop. He loved connecting with fans, whether through impromptu gigs or heartfelt moments like singing with his daughter. His health, aside from his cancer diagnosis, was rarely discussed, but his energy on stage suggested a man fueled by music's vitality. Terry's life was about the next song, the next gig, the next chance to share his gift. Terry Reid's legacy is a tapestry of brilliance and near misses. His voice influenced Led Zeppelin's early sound, and his songs were covered by artists from Marianne Faithfull to Jack White. He played a pivotal role in rock history, connecting Jimmy Page to Robert Plant and John Bonham, a fact he took pride in. His albums, especially River and Seed of Memory, are cult classics, cherished by fans on platforms like Talkbase for their loose, soulful vibe. The Black Crowes drew heavily from his style, and Rob Zombie featured his songs in films, introducing him to new generations. Terry's career spanned the Isle of Wight in 1969, Glastonbury in 1970, and countless clubs, each performance a testament to his passion. Tributes from peers like Graham Nash, who called him a brilliant artist, and Joe Bonamassa, who mourned his loss, reflect his impact. Terry was never a household name, but he was a legend to those who knew musicians, fans, and friends who saw the fire in his soul. Reflecting on Terry Reid's life, it's a story of choices, talent, and resilience. At 75, he left us too soon, his cancer battle cutting short a voice that could still move mountains. He was a man who turned down Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, not out of arrogance, but because he believed in his own path. To his wife, his daughter, and the friends who became his family, Terry was more than Superlungs. He was a generous spirit, a collaborator, a dreamer who lived for the music. His story reminds us to follow our own beat, even when the world tempts us with brighter lights. Terry Reid didn't need fame to shine, his voice, his songs, and his heart were enough. Thank you for joining me in celebrating the extraordinary life of Terry Reid. If his story stirred your soul, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep Superlungs music alive, resonating through the years. Until next time, keep the rhythm going.